Hello. My name is Amanda, and this is my daughter, Maya. What motivated me to share my story is that I want to help other families and share our miracle story with stem cells. So my daughter got diagnosed at 18 months. Around that time, I also noticed that she was regressing. She was in a Montessori school at the time, and the teachers had even told me she wasn't keeping up with the other children. So I knew that there was an issue. She was not holding eye contact. She was not responding to her name. She was pacing back and forth, lining objects just over and over all day. Very irritated, wouldn't let you hold her hand or brush her teeth. So when she got diagnosed, obviously it wasn't a surprise. And of course, your whole world you feel like your whole world has changed in that very moment, because the future that you thought your child had is kind of just a completely different path now, or at least you think it is at that moment, because now I'm not worried. But yeah, I mean, I cried every day for a whole week, and my life was crushed. But a couple years later now, I can say I laugh at how upset I was back then. Because if I would have known how things would have been today, of course I wouldn't have been worried, because now I feel like we have a much brighter future. So, as I mentioned, my daughter got diagnosed at 18 months, which you could say is a very early age to get diagnosed compared to other children. So at that time, I really hadn't tried any other therapies before. I already knew about stem cell treatments because I had worked in the health industry since I was 18 years old. So I always knew that stem cells could help with autism and a lot of other conditions. So when she got diagnosed, I did not hesitate at all. I immediately jumped in to seeking a good doctor who could provide stem cell therapy. Luckily, from working in the healthcare industry, I knew a lot of doctors who had used it on their patients for other diagnoses. So I always knew of it. When I had a child on the spectrum, of course I knew I had to try it.
Can you show me where New Mexico is? Good job! Great job! Yeah, Florida. I would never imagine she could even understand the alphabet. And a couple months after, she learned the alphabet, and her vocabulary just started getting better and better. And now we're reading books.
So I started digging into reviews about the doctor at Miami Stem Cell. And I noticed that he was like the #1 doctor on podcasts talking about this specific topic, autism and stem cells. So I listened to every single podcast that he had, and there's a lot. And then I also started looking at reviews, and I even spoke with 2 other families who went to them. I actually tracked them down and contacted them on the internet just to get verification that. So yeah, that's how I learned about him. She was around the same time as diagnosis, so around 18 months.
Okay, so everything progressed pretty quickly from the diagnosis on.
Yes, so she did her treatment, and literally 2 weeks after, I already noticed major improvement. Not only me, but her teachers. Her teachers told me that, wow, she is actually holding eye contact and she's responding to her name. They were mind blown. I mean, they asked me, did something happen? Did you do anything different? Because they just couldn't believe she was already just evolving into a different child. 2 weeks after. When she was receiving her first treatment, I was just very positive. I told myself, well, it's either going to work or it's not going to work. I already trust the doctor in a clinical setting, so I know that the treatment's either not going to be effective, that effective, or she's going to flourish. So I said, well, what do I have to lose? The whole mechanism of stem cells is they're very safe. And I think what's more important is finding a doctor that you can trust. He's extremely well versed. They'll answer any questions. I mean, they give you a certificate upon doing the treatment, so you know exactly where the stem cells came from. So, I mean, they're just super transparent, so I was very comfortable. You know, I didn't have any doubts. I just wanted to see my child get better, and I was willing to try it. So I just went in with a very positive mindset and said, it's either going to work or it's not. And if it doesn't work, at least I tried. I would say 2 weeks after, I noticed she was actually holding eyes with me, which is something she never did, because she was honestly in her own world. She did not talk to anyone. She was just pacing back and forth all day. So 2 weeks after, started looking at me, and as time went on, she would just hold eye contact longer and longer. And then she started actually trying to say words. And then a couple months later, she actually had a vocabulary. She knew her ABCs. She was very responsive, where I would say a phrase and then she would complete me, with the final word. And she stopped pacing back and forth. She seemed much calmer and just happier, less antsy, cranky, and all of that. She just seemed more at peace, I would say. A breakthrough moment, I would say, is when she actually let me hold her hand, because she just never let me hold her hand, and it was just very heartbreaking for me that I would go to hold her hand and she would instantly go like that. So that moment when she just held my hand, for once, I actually felt like, wow, I have a child who's, less on the spectrum. It's been quite a journey. When she got diagnosed, she was in Montessori school. And then we decided she needed to go to ABA therapy. So she was in Montessori school, got diagnosed, did her treatment, and then shortly after, we got her into a very strict ABA program where she is there 5 hours a day with a bunch of therapists giving her one-on-one care. I do believe that ABA was very helpful, but I don't think she would have been able to retain all the information from ABA therapy if it weren't for the stem cells. Because before the treatment, she was practically in her own world. No matter how hard you would try to teach her something, she was just not there. So I do think the stem cells kind of reset her, and they kind of calmed her down where she could actually retain that information. Fast forward to now, 2 years later, my daughter is actually in Montessori school now. She just started. And she has a shadow with her. The shadow is with her just to help her get used to the whole daily schedule there. But if you would have asked me 2 years ago, would I have imagined her ready to go back into a normal school setting? I would have never believed you. It was always a dream of mine to get her back into a normal school setting. So the fact that I was able to do this just 2 years after diagnosis is just a huge win for me.